My brother wanted me to be the legal guardian of his baby. Before I said yes, I asked his wife to take a test to prove he is the father. Now their marriage is falling apart. I'm a 28-year-old woman and my older brother is 30. About 2 weeks ago, he asked me to be the legal guardian of his 6-month-old son. My brother visited me and explained that he needed me to be his son's legal guardian because his job required him to move to another city. His wife, who is 29, spends most of her time in the hospital for chemotherapy treatments. She was diagnosed with stage 2 liver cancer last month. My brother can't turn down the new job offer because it pays more than his current job, and he needs the extra money to pay for his wife's treatments. He arranged for his in-laws to look after his wife while he works out of state for 5 days and comes back on weekends. However, his in-laws are elderly and can't handle taking care of both his wife and his son, so he asked me to take care of his son. We have no other family besides each other, so I'm the only person he could ask. It was really hard for me to say no. Both our parents passed away when we were in our early 20s, and we've been on our own ever since. My brother works in marketing, and I'm a high school teacher, so neither of us is wealthy. I'm already busy and tired from my job and couldn't take on the added responsibility of looking after my nephew. But I also couldn't just say no to my brother because we're all we have, and it would break my heart if he got mad at me over this. There was another reason I was hesitant about the legal guardianship. I'd heard rumors and gossip about my sister-in-law. We live in a small town where news spreads quickly. A couple of years ago, before my brother got married, I heard from a coworker that one of her cousins was in a lot of legal trouble over a paternity fraud she committed. Her husband was now suing her because she'd been lying to him. While people weren't sure about the details, one name kept coming up in the gossip, and that was my current sister-in-law's name. I'm not sure how exactly she was involved or to what extent, but I knew she played a part in helping to cover it up for a few years after the child was born. Their son was almost 2 years old when the guy's wife, my sister-in-law's best friend, insisted they get married so she could quit her job and stay home with their son. The guy's mother suspected something was off because of how hard she was pushing for marriage, which led to the paternity test finally being done. We learned that my now sister-in-law had played a huge role in the fraud by connecting her best friend with her cousin, who worked at the hospital. They took money from her best friend and the unsuspecting husband to keep the secret. Essentially, she and her best friend were fooling the poor guy for money. While her best friend got into legal trouble for it, my sister-in-law walked away without any consequences. Almost 2 years ago, my brother told me he had met a woman, and it turned out to be the same woman I had heard about in the paternity scam gossip. I warned him about what I had heard, but he trusted her and didn't believe the rumors. Not wanting to interfere, I stayed out of it. Within a year, they got married and had a baby. I kept quiet because I didn't want to disturb their happy marriage. Last month, she was diagnosed with stage 2 liver cancer, which explained why she had been in and out of the hospital recently. When my brother asked me to be their son's legal guardian, I decided I didn't want to get involved without knowing the truth. I told him I would only agree if his wife took a paternity test first. He was upset by what I was implying and accused me of doubting his wife without reason, given how long they'd been together. But I stood firm and said I wouldn't be his son's legal guardian unless the paternity test was done. I wanted to avoid any potential trouble in case there was something she was hiding. After a lot of arguing, my brother finally agreed to get the paternity test done. Then I didn't hear from him for 2 whole weeks. 3 days ago, he suddenly called and told me I no longer needed to sign anything and that he was staying here. I was confused because he canceled the move out of the blue. When I asked him what changed, he told me to mind my own business and then hung up on me. This was surprising because my brother is usually nice and polite, so I had no idea what had happened in the past few days. I couldn't ask anyone else because the only person who might know what was going on was his wife, and I didn't want to speak to her. I waited for a day, hoping my brother would come around and tell me what was going on, but he didn't. So I called my sister-in-law instead. She answered immediately and started screaming at me, accusing me of ruining her marriage. I don't know why she said that, but something awful must have happened, and I'm afraid it has to do with the paternity test. I insisted on my brother getting the paternity test done because I needed time to think about the guardianship and wanted to avoid any potential trouble if he wasn't really the father. I suspect his wife had been hiding something, and my insistence on the test might have uncovered it. Otherwise, I can't think of any reason why my brother would suddenly change his plans. I feel awful because, for my own peace of mind, I might have ruined my brother's marriage. It makes it even worse that his wife is suffering from cancer. Am I the bad person for insisting that my brother get a paternity test done? Update 1. Thank you all for the kind messages and comments. I'm glad to know that not everyone is judging me for wanting to put myself first. I spoke to my brother today, and he told me everything that had happened in the past 2 weeks after I asked for the paternity test. He said that after our meeting he went straight home and told his wife about my request. He thought it would be a straightforward conversation since he didn't think his wife would disagree. However, she was very against it, and that didn't make sense to him. She said it was insulting for me to ask for a paternity test because it implied that I still believed she was a scammer, and even worse, that she had been scamming her own husband. Her strong reaction to the idea of a paternity test was so emotional that it made him start to suspect something was off about her behavior. After a few days of thinking, my brother decided to get the paternity test done without telling his wife. He was hoping not to find anything bad. Unfortunately, what he found out was shocking. He and his son were not a match. He was so surprised by the results that he took the test again to make sure there wasn't a mistake. The second test confirmed the same result. He was in shock because this meant his marriage was based on a lie. He had ignored the rumors about his wife, even when I warned him, but now it turned out everyone else was right, and he was wrong. A few days after getting the results, he confronted his wife. At first, she tried to deny it, but she couldn't escape the truth now that he knew he wasn't the father. Finally, she admitted that shortly after they got married, she had an affair with a friend while he was out of town, and that's how she got pregnant. She didn't confess earlier because she feared it would ruin their marriage. Once she got pregnant, she realized she only wanted to be with my brother. My sister-in-law also admitted to being involved in the first paternity scam. She confessed that she had connected her best friend with her cousin who worked at the hospital back then. Her friend's husband wouldn't have found out if he hadn't independently gotten another paternity test from a different hospital. So all the rumors about her were true. Despite knowing the consequences of cheating and lying, she still put my brother through the same ordeal. It's unbelievable and disgusting. I'm really glad I pressured my brother into getting a paternity test done. Otherwise, he might never have discovered the truth. When she married my brother, she didn't have a job and decided to be a stay-at-home mom. My brother supported her completely. She didn't stay with him because she was sure of him or truly loved him. She stayed because she had nowhere else to go once she got pregnant. My brother believes, and I agree, that the real reason she stayed was because he was willing to look past her past, trust her completely, and provide for her without questioning her. If she could cheat on him just 1 year into their marriage, she didn't really love him. She stayed because he was her only support. She only cared about herself, and while my brother is still struggling to accept that, I'm not. I always knew my sister-in-law wasn't trustworthy but kept quiet to avoid causing trouble. My brother seemed really in love with her, and when they got pregnant within a year of marriage, I didn't want to say anything that might mess up their relationship, especially with a baby on the way. Once my nephew was born, I couldn't risk talking badly about her because it would have caused a rift between me and my brother. So I stayed silent, but the truth was bound to come out eventually. I just regret that I wasn't able to prevent this from happening. My brother has now filed for divorce and full custody of his son. His wife is devastated and insists that she really does love him now, but there's no undoing what she did. I'm glad he's decided to leave, even if it took years. The only thing I feel a little bad about is that she's a cancer patient, and this is happening at a really bad time for her. But my brother deserves better, and I support his decision. Update 2 I just found out from my brother that the man my sister-in-law cheated with, who is also the real father of their son, had still been actively involved in their lives until recently. My brother came over for a few drinks this evening and shared this shocking information with me. This man had been an old friend of his wife's and had feelings for her for a long time, but she chose to marry my brother instead. My sister-in-law felt that this friend wasn't financially stable, which wasn't enough for her. She had told my brother about this friend when they first started dating, but he never suspected anything because he trusted her completely. When she finally confessed, she claimed they had only been together once after the marriage because they were drunk and emotional. My brother doesn't know if anything she says is true anymore. My brother said he felt like an idiot for trusting her in the first place and regretted spending so many years defending her against anyone who spoke ill of her, only to find out that everything they said was true. She was only after his money, and he was the only one foolish enough to trust her despite her reputation. I felt terrible after he left because I wondered if I could have prevented this situation by pushing him harder not to marry her. But here we are. It's disgusting that she stayed in touch with the man she cheated with. Hearing my brother talk about how his wife would invite this guy and his wife over for dinner, and they'd all sit and chat like old friends while he unknowingly raised this other man's son, was sickening. This was his reality, and I just had to listen to him. I can't imagine what my brother must be going through right now. I keep thinking about how different things might have been if I had tried harder to make him see her true nature before they got married. It's heartbreaking that he's enduring all this pain just because he chose to love someone who didn't deserve it. I worry about how this will affect his relationship with his son, as it must be incredibly taxing on him mentally. He's been living at home with his son, while his wife has moved in with her parents. She visits every day, begging for forgiveness and trying to convince him not to leave her. It must be incredibly difficult for him to say no to a cancer patient after so many years together. I know he still loves her despite her betrayal and the lies she told him throughout their marriage and her pregnancy. I could hear it in his voice as he reminisced about the good times they had. I wish I could do something more to help my brother, but I can't. The most I can do is offer to babysit my nephew. My brother is taking on more work and responsibilities to earn more money and provide his son with the life he deserves. I don't think my brother will get full custody of his son given the circumstances. The court will likely want the child to spend as much time as possible with his mother, especially if her condition worsens. Her cancer has been progressing for the past few months, and it's unlikely she'll be able to fight it much longer. To be honest, I don't even know what to feel about anyone involved in this situation, including myself. I tried to warn my brother when he was dating my sister-in-law, but he didn't listen. So it's not like I'm in the wrong here, but I still can't shake off the guilt. Every single adult involved has failed my nephew and made a complete mess of things, including me. I just hope we can all come out of this as better people. It's been a week and a half since my brother last visited, and he's been really busy with work. Today he asked me to watch my nephew for a couple of hours because he needed to see his lawyer urgently. I agreed because I wanted to help him in any way I could. When he came back, he told me that his wife had revealed the truth about their son's father to her friend. Now the friend wants to fight for custody if my brother doesn't agree to his wife's terms. She's still trying to reconcile with my brother and even used her cancer diagnosis to guilt him into giving in to her demands. She doesn't seem to understand that the custody battle isn't about getting back at her. It's about ensuring that their son stays with his rightful father, even if something happens to her. My brother isn't trying to get back at her with the divorce, he's simply respecting himself too much to stay with someone who has used him for years. They had a really bad argument a couple of days ago when she came by to see her son and talked to my brother about stopping the legal proceedings. When he refused, she got angry and said some hurtful things, making the situation worse. My brother thinks she involved her friend as revenge, and I agree. I wonder what her friend's wife will think about all of this. They've only been married for 4 months, and this is a crazy situation to be in. I'm grateful that my nephew is blissfully unaware of all this drama. Today, he seemed as happy as ever. I hope he stays that way because he shouldn't have to deal with all this at such a young age. Hi, everyone. Today, my sister-in-law came to my house to see my brother. He had dropped the baby off with me for a while, and since he had been avoiding her for a few days, she figured he might come here. I tried to send her away, but she looked so sick and weak that I found it hard to turn her down. So my brother took over and invited her inside, telling her to be quick because he had to leave for work soon. I was in the room with them, feeling like I was intruding on something personal. My sister-in-law begged my brother to agree to joint custody. She had managed to get rid of her friend's involvement but got emotional and ended up telling my brother the truth, which led to his involvement. She said she had accepted the divorce and wouldn't contest it, but she desperately needed to see her baby because her cancer had worsened. According to her doctors, it had progressed to stage 3 this week. My sister-in-law really needed to spend time with her son. My brother looked distraught, and I thought he would say no, but he surprised me. He calmly told her that he could only allow supervised visits at this point. He explained that she had lied to him for months, and he couldn't just overlook it because she was sick. He was hurting too, even if his pain wasn't as visible. He admitted that he had defended her against accusations, but now he realized they were true since she had cheated on him. For his own sake and their son's, he wanted to move on from her. My sister-in-law didn't seem happy, but my brother stood firm. He told her she could agree to supervised visits or go to court. After a moment of silence, she agreed to supervised visits, which is what the court would likely order anyway. Now they just need to finalize this legally. The divorce is still happening though. I don't know what the future holds, but I hope it's filled with good things for my brother and nephew. I noticed something strange when my wife came home one day dressed in a way that seemed unusual, so I decided to check our security footage. What I found out changed everything, and it ended our marriage. My ex-wife and I met one summer day at the beach. She was hanging out with some college friends, and I was with my own group. We hit it off, exchanged numbers, and started dating soon after. 2 years later, we got married. But before we tied the knot, things weren't easy. My wife came from a wealthy family, and her parents didn't approve of me. They didn't think I was good enough for her because I worked long hours at 2 different jobs and struggled to find a well-paying job. Despite their objections, we were determined to be together. After months of her parents trying to break us apart, they eventually stopped and accepted our relationship. With them out of the picture, I thought we were in the clear, but more challenges were on the horizon. 2 months before our wedding, my wife admitted to cheating on me with one of her classmates. She said it was a mistake and that guilt had been weighing on her. During the time she claimed the cheating happened, I noticed she seemed sad and down. Whenever I asked what was wrong, she brushed it off. When she finally confessed, I forgave her. Looking back, I regret not being more cautious. I believed her promise never to do it again because she confessed on her own, which made me think she was genuinely sorry. It was a tough situation, but I was young, foolish, and in love, so I forgave her. We went ahead with our wedding and were married for almost 2 years. Even though we never talked about her cheating again, it always lingered in my mind. I thought about her confession every day but kept it to myself. I tried to move past it because she seemed to have moved on and was being the perfect wife to me. She was incredibly kind, treated me like a king, and showered me with love. Despite her efforts, I couldn't shake the feeling that she might still be seeing her classmate. It made me feel guilty, like I was dwelling on the past and not appreciating our marriage as I should. It took me a year after we got married to finally let go of the past and try to enjoy our relationship. I realized I hadn't been giving her the attention she deserved, so I started making more effort. I began making breakfast in bed for her and cooking dinner before she got home from work. I had big plans for our second anniversary, and I couldn't wait to make it special for us. On the day of our second anniversary, I went all out to make it special for my wife, hoping to make up for any neglect in the past. I prepared everything meticulously, including a fancy gift, a dress, and accessories for her. I left work early and waited eagerly for her to come home. But when she didn't arrive as expected, I called her. She said her professor had called an impromptu class, and she couldn't miss it because it affected her grade. I felt let down. I didn't argue, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It didn't make sense to me that she'd miss our anniversary for a class, even if it was important. I had a nagging suspicion that she might be hiding something from me. To ease my mind, I checked her Snapchat location, which showed a different place from where she claimed to be. I couldn't believe it at first, but after checking multiple times, I realized she was lying to me again. Without wasting any time, I went straight to the location indicated by the Snapchat location. It hit me like a ton of bricks when I realized it was the same apartment where she had cheated on me before we got married. I was beyond heartbroken and disappointed. I wanted to burst into the apartment and confront her, but I had a different plan in mind. I called her parents and asked them to come over to the apartment to surprise her for our anniversary. I knew they'd come because they'd do anything for their only child. When her parents arrived, we went to the apartment to give her the surprise. As soon as we knocked on the door and her lover opened it, her parents saw her walking naked inside the house. Her father yelled her name, and her mother pushed her aside and stormed in. It was a scene I can only describe as chaotic. She didn't know who to beg first, me or her parents. I stood there as her mother screamed and questioned her, while her father looked on in shock. After she covered herself with a sheet, I simply told her it was over between us, and that her cheating on me again was my fault. She didn't understand, and I didn't bother explaining. I left not knowing what happened between her and her parents after that. She came back later that week, asking to talk, but I refused. She packed her things and left without insisting on explaining herself. I was left puzzled by her behavior, wondering if she ever truly loved me or if she was just caught up in a power struggle with her parents. Before she came to collect her belongings, I had already contacted a divorce lawyer. When the papers were ready, she signed them without hesitation. Even now, I still wonder about her feelings for me. The last time I checked her Facebook, I saw a photo of her with her lover, accompanied by a sentimental caption. It made me angry, so I blocked her immediately. Seeing her happiness made me realize that I had been dwelling in the past for too long. I've moved on faster than I thought I would. I've learned that I control my emotions and that I shouldn't let a cheating spouse dictate my happiness. I no longer care about her. My focus now is on myself and my future.